Good morning, everybody. Glad to see you guys. As you can tell, it's a lot warmer outside today. I think it makes me want to. I wish I wore shorts. But glad to see you guys this morning. Welcome to Safe Harbor. If it's your first time, welcome. My name is Steven, and this is Alicia. Usually we lead. Fortunately, we sing a couple songs. And like we always say, feel free to participate however you want. There's never any pressure. So, yeah, so we're going to kind of sing a couple of songs. Feel free to join.
are Safe Harbor OC Church. And for those who are like new with us, if you hear the word or acronym SHOCK, that just means Safe Harbor. So we like to call ourselves SHOCK. I was at another church on a Saturday because it's a long story. They meet on Saturdays. And they were in Redlands, and one of the people was from Orange County, and she was like, having an acronym is so Orange County. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I think Orange County really likes our acronyms, so that's why we're shocked. Anyways, with that, we are a Jesus-centered community, reimagining inclusive spaces to rest, restore, belong, and become, and we're so grateful you are here. Now, one of the ways we like to be inclusive is we like to invite our kids into a kids prayer before they go into their kids ministry. So you might notice we have kids to the right of us, some back with us, and they're playing, hi, that's my baby, hi James, hello buddy, yeah. And they're playing, and they're waiting for mommy, I'm not mommy, I'm mommy to James. Or they're waiting for me to do a little kids prayer. But here's the plot twist. We are not doing kids prayers for the last 5 weeks. We've been doing some mindfulness practices, some kid mindfulness practices centered around social justice issues. And we thought it would be great for the adults to also participate. And so we're going to do just that and then invite our kids to kids ministry. All right? So for this mindfulness practice, if you've ever done mindfulness before, this is a practice where you can get comfortable in your seat. You can put both feet on the floor. You are welcome to close your eyes or soften your gaze. And I'm going to have the kids, if you want, to come over here. I'll sit on this chair right here. Yeah, you can sit right here. Hi, Bradley. Hi. And we're going to go ahead and do this practice. So kids, you're welcome to just sit. You can just stare at me, stare at this weird lady just reading a piece of paper. Or you can soften your gaze or close your eyes. Sound good? All right, James, let's do this. All right, friends, so this is the title of our topic today, that is housing insecurity. So feel free to close your eyes or soften your gaze and we'll get started. All right, friends, go ahead and find a comfortable place to sit and close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Let's do it again. Deep breath in and let it out. One more time. Deep breath in and let it out. Yeah, that's right. Back up. That's good. That's called it's lion's breath in yoga. Imagine that a nearby hotel is being turned into a shelter for those without a permanent home. A local community group is looking for volunteers to help set up the apartments for those moving in. Your family decides to help. You carry in a bed frame and a side table. You also help put together a bookcase. You even get to pick out some throw pillows for the sofa. You wonder what else the new tenants will see to fill at home. You meet a family that will be moving in next week. They tell you that they have been living in their car while they wait for the shelter to open. You try to imagine your family living in your car. Where does everyone sleep? What do you do with all this stuff? As you head back to your house, you notice lots of yard signs that say, "No homeless here." You wonder why those neighbors are unhappy about the shelter. You see a few houses with "Welcome neighbors" signs instead. You wonder why some people are happy about the new homes. How do you feel about shelter? Take a deep breath in and let it out. That's good, guys. And now open your eyes when you're ready. Whew, that was a heavy topic. Yeah, so I'm happy about it. Yeah. Did anyone want to share what image or thing came up for them during that mindfulness practice?
I just thought about how there have been times that I've been close to homelessness and worried that that would be my life. And feel blessed that I haven't had to have that situation, but I also feel empathy for people who are facing it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your vulnerability. I think that this is just not just like a topic that's somewhere out there. It's something that has impacted maybe all of us, and whether it's someone close to us or ourselves. So thank you for sharing that. Maybe one or two more.
I appreciated the welcoming yard signs for, even if people weren't in a place to necessarily lend their hands to help, that at the very least they acknowledged in a welcoming way what those people were going through. I thought that was a good, heartfelt thing that they could do.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Great. Yeah, so this was a heavier topic today, I think, because of homelessness and housing insecurity. We talked about financial insecurity before. It's close to home in a lot of ways. So thank you so much for your vulnerability and your ability to sit in that discomfort this morning. With that, it's a really weird, silly shift. I'm going to invite the kids. Colin is our leader and Deb is our leader to go with them to the kids ministry room. And they're going to be reading a book, a belonging story about Passover because we're close to Easter. So kids, if you feel comfortable, you can head on out with Deb and Colin. Ooh, that's cool. That's a fun time. So funny. And with that time, we're going to transition us. We're going to keep on this little trend of including kids into this worship service by talking about the Book of Belonging. Now, we have been going over this Book of Belonging. What that is a children's Bible, but it's an inclusive children's Bible with inclusive children's stories that we have may or may not heard told in this light before. And so today, we are going to wrap up our series by doing a panel. Now, a panel of people in our community who have been with us throughout this series, where we get to learn about how this series, with the stories, and this concept of belonging has impacted them. But before we do, Dottie and I were going over ideas for this time, and we thought it would be really great if we can read, or I read, the intro to the Book of Belonging to get us started. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and do that. It should be on the screen. Wonderful. Okay. This is a book inspired by stories from the Bible. And what is the Bible? The Bible is a very old, very long book made up of many different types of stories. Some of the stories are told through poems and songs. Some are more like history lessons. Some are official royal records, and some are letters. But they all work together to teach us what God is like. What is God like? Well, that is a big question with many lovely, complicated answers. Answers that you will likely spend the rest of your life exploring. Because most of the time, these stories don't come right out and give us the answers. That would be much easier. Often, they show us more than they can tell. And they present to us who God is through the history of God's family. People who are learning to trust God in the middle of their messy lives. They learn bits and pieces of who God is, and they save their stories for us to learn from. But God is too big to fit into every, even our most imaginative human words. So all throughout history, people who have tried to describe God say things like, God protects us like a mother bird sitting in her nest. Or, God is everywhere like the wind. Or, God comforts us like a hug. We've tried to display that too in our different illustrations of God. We've imagined God with a face that frowns and smiles, with arms that help and hold, with a mouth to breathe and speak. In some stories, God is shown looking like a hovering bird, a covering cloud, or a brightening fire. But it is important to remember that we don't know what God looks like. We only know what God is like. So each picture is a beautiful, true idea for our eyes to rest on, while our hearts do the important work of learning to trust God's big, mysterious wholeness. one of the most special things about learning stories from the Bible is that they teach us about who we are. We get to learn the names God has for us, the people God made. The more we read the Bible, the more names we will learn. There are 3 big names that seem really special to God. 3 that show up again and again in the stories we've shared here. Belonging, beloved, delightful.
Thanks, Donna. So I'm going to invite up the panelists in a second, and before I do, I just wanted to share a little bit about some of the stories that we have been covering. So as Donna said, we've been reading this awesome book, the Book of Belonging. And one of the reasons why we did this, and some of you might have already heard this, is we really wanted to approach the Bible with some creativity. The Bible is a loaded book. For some of us, we might feel like it is the place of our deepest wounds. For others of us, it might actually be a place where we're excited to re-engage with. Others of us might feel disinterested or unsure or whatever. I know for myself, about 9 years ago, the Bible was a place where when I used to read my Bible every day, like I was in it for, I don't know, at least 10 years of reading my Bible every day. And then I had a season of life where I could not open my Bible without shaking, like having a visceral shaking reaction, because I was like, I don't actually trust what's in here. I'm scared. I'm worried. And it wasn't until I studied the Bible through a lot more diverse lenses in seminary that I realized, I actually have a place in this story, and I feel confident when approaching this text and approaching it with integrity and bringing my perspective to it and my questions and my wrestling. So over the last couple months now, we've been going through stories through this children's book that are all Bible stories teaching us about God. And again, some we've heard before, and some have been like, where was this story in VeggieTales? And why isn't this a key story? So and as you can imagine, the book centers around this theme of belonging. And I do think that each of these stories has invited us into deeper knowings of who God is or what God is like. And who we are and who we are called to be. So I'm just going to review some of the stories we've done, and then I'll invite the panelists. So the first week we looked at Genesis 1, the creation story, and this gave us an expansive image of God. We looked at how God is Elohim, this plural, non-binary creator, and how God is also Ruach, the spirit, the feminine spirit that hovers, and that we are created in God's image. And then we looked at Exodus 16 and talked about the Israelites in the wilderness and them getting manna from God. And we took a different take on what does it mean to trust God, not in a classical trust God way, but how can we see safety and grounding in our midst. And then we looked at the story of Hagar in Genesis 16 and 21, how she is this awesome hero in the wilderness, has experienced so much oppression, but God is with her. God sees her, and she is the first person to give God a name, which is El Roy, the God who sees me. Then we talked about the 5 sisters in Numbers 27, who were these awesome women that stood before Moses and said, no, we have rights here too. Dawn and I shared about our experiences as ministry women, about collaboration. And it was really cool to see about this story, and I think that was the day where we had a sweet mom in the back nursing her kiddo going, wait, where was this in VeggieTales? This story is awesome. And then we looked at Judges 4 and 5, the story of Deborah, Yael, and Barak, a story of shared leadership, of boldness, of one where the woman was the hero of the story, but it wasn't the woman in the power, it was the underdog, the unexpected hero, Yael. And then lastly, last week, we looked at wisdom, this feminine, beautiful wisdom in the Hebrew Bible, in Job and Proverbs, and God showing up as wisdom which is this feminine noun, as this, and personified as a woman crying in the streets for justice. And we saw how wisdom can be with us as well. So we've gone over a lot of different stories in the Hebrew Bible. It's been so fun. And all of them centering around this deep sense that we all belong. So we're going to get more into these stories, and I'm going to invite up our panelists. I'm so excited. We have Erin, Kristen, and Steven coming. And we will take a seat together. Yes, choose your seat, whichever one feels right. Whichever one feels right. Sorry for the book. Okay, lovely. Okay, so each of you, I would love it if you could just share your name, pronouns, and I don't know, maybe how long have you been at shop? Or what brought you here?
Hi, my name is Erin, and I go by she, her, and I've been part of shop for a little over a year and a half.
I'm Kristen, been going, she, her. I've been coming here for about a year and a half. I'm looking for my husband to how long have you been here? About a year and a half, yeah.
Hi, I'm Steven, him. I've been coming basically from the beginning, so almost 3 years now.
Amazing. Okay, so I would love to hear what story, also, can you all see everyone? Everyone, you can see the panels. Okay, great. What story or moment in this series stood out to you the most and why?
When I was going over the series, I initially thought it would be Hagar, because it was one of the first messages I heard from you when I was blown away by the Black feminist and just the justice of that. But I decided, let's just step back, go through the stories again, and what really stood out was the creation story this time around, because growing up in the Christian faith, we focus so much on we're born a sinner, and even after our conversion experience, that message just continues. You're sinful, you need to always apologize. But the creation story in the book of belonging shifts that focus, and it shifted that focus for me. It reframes the story of the Bible through this new lens. It moves away from that traditional Eve sinning, because let's bring it, we don't really focus on Adam sinning, we focus on Eve sinning, right? And it reframes that story, and so I was just, and then when I read this story again today, and I was just really completely, over and over it states, you are good, and you're good. And it's just so different than what I was taught in the beginning. And it's just such a beautiful way, and I'm glad that hopefully someday we'll have grandchildren that will be able to share that you are good.
I also went with the creation story, the first chapter, and then the chapter that went after it. Kind of like what you said, we're given a message that we're not good, and a theme that I kept saying throughout the story is goodness, and also Adam and Eve both are spoken to with compassion and understanding versus condemnation.
I think for me, probably the most interesting of the story that popped out to me the most was the 5 fearless sisters. And I think the connection for me was, I grew up in a Christian household, I went to a Christian college, so the Bible eventually became just a text that I studied, and it lost kind of all its humanness to it. And so I think it was very fascinating to hear the story that I've never really heard before, and kind of be just naturally interested, wait, what happens? I don't actually know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. So, and the creation story, for those of you that weren't there, it really does speak of people are created in the image of God, and that is the starting place of people are good. Humans are good, and I love that you all brought that up. And the 5 fearless sisters story, where in the world has this story been? Oh my goodness, we had to dig for it. Goodness, yeah, it's so interesting. Okay, so how has this series shaped your understanding of belonging in faith and community?
is really difficult and hard, and so community is essential. And finding like your third space, like where do we find people? And this series just reminded me that we're not meant to walk alone. And I find it like Hagar had to find her new community outside of Egypt and figure out what that looked like. And then the 5 sisters stood together and demanded from their community, we need to be respected, and I thought that was beautiful. And then belonging means just being seen, like I see you and I support you, and we're here for you. And I think those are so important in community.
Yeah, with this one, I think of doing Bible studies in the past and things like joining church communities, and I kind of realized that I joined them more for the community than for the Bible reading itself, because a lot of times Bible studies felt like a chore, and I felt like I still couldn't grasp the message. And also during the study itself, I felt like I had to agree with a consensus or agree with a certain message, and even then I would still have trouble comprehending the text. It felt like a chore, but reading this book, it's actually even more enjoyable than picking up the regular Bible. Part of it is because of the imagery and everything. So that's my experience, but also having done a little bit of research on this book, I was listening to a podcast episode where the author and illustrator, or one of them, is talking about how their child or their daughter asks her, does God like boys more than girls? And I remember one of her missions for this book is to represent women, because even the women who are talked about, they're background characters. So I like how she kind of made them the main character in some passages.
I like what you talked about in terms of the essence, at least for me, is coming to church has always been community. Like if I could, I would just come probably midway through service and just come out to hang out with people.
Yeah.
Or just ask like, hey, what do you guys want for lunch out here? That's just who I am and what I like. Nothing against worship or the preaching. That sounds great, but it's just, I think it's more so like the thing, you always remember people over like, you know, a message or worship stuff. Like you always remember faces and remember what you should do. And so I really relate to what you're saying in terms of that. And I think for me personally, when it comes to like a sense of community and belonging, at least coming here at Shock, of what I felt like I've had to do, which has been good, is just learning to listen a lot, because I do have privilege in certain ways, and so being able to hear different stories from people that are more marginalized or aren't usually heard has been such a blessing. So.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, love that. Stephen and I really aren't that important with the work that we do. We would rather hang out with people than, and my husband just walked in the room, but he's like, oh yeah, I like coffee house way more than I like service, which is you've been a coffee house, and so like non-service Sunday, sorry Jess, love you. But yeah, there's something to that, right? Like these stories teach us a deeper sense of connection with people and how important people and our stories are. Erin, I'm so glad you brought up how the author centers women and these underdog stories. And I heard once that women often in the Bible are used as props by the ancient authors for their storytelling. And that's tough, right? That often these marginalized figures in the stories are used as props. And what's so awesome about this book of belonging is that these figures are not props, that they're actually and central to the story. So I would love to hear, how did reimagining these stories, especially centering these lesser known characters, shift the way you experience the Bible, if at all?
Okay, well, the Bible is a very triggering word, which Phil knows this morning I had a little breakdown about it. I'm like, I can't answer this question. I've had like a very, I guess over the last 10 years, I very rarely have read the Bible. To a point where it's like, I used to do devotions, and if I did do devotions, I had to say, dear God, please forgive me for not doing devotions today. Devotions were read, and if you did it right, it wasn't a devotion. So it was check these boxes for me, and even when we moved, I got rid of all the Bible, maybe the baby Bibles we still have from the children. But I think, I've talked to you, I've talked to Donna about this too, like the Bible is just not something, but I think it's helped me shift my perspective, and especially when it does look at the more marginalized characters, it doesn't feel so triggering in the ways that, like, oh, we're gonna read about Moses, we're gonna read about Sarah, or Abraham, or, it's in a different light, and it's easy to digest now more, I guess. And so, in a slight way, I've been able to start to reconnect to the Bible again. Now, if I ever read the real, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I like the stories.
Yes, would you mind repeating the question?
Yes. So how did reimagining these stories by centering oppressed characters instead of like the classic Abrahams shift the way you experience the Bible?
Thank you. I'd say even before picking up the book, something that I have given myself permission to do, and also a content creator on Instagram gave me permission to do, is not take the Bible literally. And with this book, you also don't have to take the Bible literally to find meaning in the stories.
I love that. And that's even what the introduction said, right? It's like, this is pointing us to a deeper understanding, but that's part of the storytelling. And why we framed this series in more of a storytelling lens is when we take it so literally and as this black and white, this is what we have to follow to a T, we lose actually the heart of the storytelling of people trying to understand God and make sense of God and their own self in the midst of it. Steven, yes.
I think for me, it's kind of similar to what you were saying, Kristen, of it makes the Bible for me a little more palatable, a little more digestible, because honestly, I already probably opened the Bible for, I don't know, like 5 years, maybe, I don't know if I plan to anytime soon, but I think it does kind of force you to really think about what your lens is and how you look at the Bible and how you grew up, and kind of re-examine a lot of, just the typical deconstructing where you came from and your faith. But also I think it's really cool to see that God is truly somebody who stands up for those who are always oppressed. And it's like, oh yeah, I connect with that, that feels like something that is part of me, and that's something that he's instilled in all of us. And so that's always been something, at least one point in the Bible to where I can always feel like tethered to.
Thanks, Steven. Yeah, there's something about entering through the Bible through a kid's lens that does feel more accessible. And what was really fun is every week when we prepared for this, Steven, so obviously preparing for the music, he would read the story every week ahead of time and just send me his thoughts on it. And it was really fun for us to collaborate in how we were shaping it and to hear how his first impressions of the story and then we would shape it together. It was, I'm very grateful for you. It was awesome. Yeah, okay, so last question for you all. How has your perception, if at all, of God's presence in your life been expanded or deepened? Anything else to say? No, nothing. Pass.
Okay, I guess I've always felt God's presence in my life out exteriorly, not internally in some ways. And that's been a safe space for me. I guess through the series, and maybe just through my time here at Shock, I'm starting to feel like, what is that presence? I don't know if it's God. I really don't. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think we'll ever be 100% sure, and I'm really okay with that now. Which before I felt like you had to nail it down and be 100% certain of something. And it's so freeing to be, I'm not certain. Change my mind, you know. And I think being able to read through the Book of Belonging a little bit more like that has brought a little bit more peace. So I don't know, yeah, the presence of God is still like a weird thing for me.
Yeah, for me as well. A big theme that I find throughout this series and probably all throughout the book would be reimagining things. But when it comes to presence, when reading the stories, I would say, for example, the way that God is speaking to Adam and Eve, it's like, oh, these are things that probably like my inner child, inner teen, or even like inner adult would need to hear, because there are some ways, like there's a lot of messages that we get that are condemning and shaming, and yeah, going back to the creation story, it's like God is kind of trying to understand Adam and Eve's motives versus just the author focusing on the punishment. But yeah, like also like you said, yeah, being okay with not knowing is, yeah, it's also very freeing to come to accept that.
I think I'm past. I think I got it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Oh, well, I guess I'll just leave it. Was there anything you didn't share or want to respond to that someone else shared and expand on as we wrap up this time? Maybe as you were talking, some final thoughts.
I think I want to delve more into like looking at it through what kind of wisdom we can take from these stories.
Yeah.
And reading the Bible like through the lens of poetry or through just like storytelling and reimagining it that way. But the wisdom that is shared in the scriptures is it's mind blowing in some ways, you know. And so I'm going to delve into that wisdom a little bit more.
I don't have much to add, but yeah, it's been great being able to share my perspective and hear your guys' perspectives as well. And yeah, I'm really glad to have discovered this book. I think it's a work of art, like in the writing and also the illustrations as well.
I think for me, probably, I've enjoyed reading through the stories because it's just reimagining, reorienting yourself in terms of how you see God. But I think for me, I'm always thinking, how does this practically apply? And so I think for me, kind of reading these stories adds a lot more like 3D-ness and depth to the Bible, to where it's like, oh yeah, I'm meeting people that are different from me in real life, and it's very relatable to like these stories that we're hearing in the Book of Belonging that I haven't heard before. But obviously, these people were always around. Their stories were just like not elevated compared to like Abraham and Moses. And so for me, it's like, oh yeah, I'm sure God wanted these like stories to be like brought up, but again, people,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, I'm so grateful for each of you. I feel like we could keep diving into this, and just very grateful for, reflecting on these stories, sharing about the ways that we can gain wisdom, and the ways that the Bible has been deeply problematic for a lot of us, right? And I love hearing, like, I haven't read it in 5 years. I don't know if I'll ever read it again. And I think that's the point, is a lot of us, this book does not feel accessible, and it doesn't feel helpful, really. And so for us to be able to bring ourselves to it in kind of a non-threatening way, and to see ourselves in the story, and to see some really cool pieces of the story that have have been hidden from us is just a really powerful thing. So let's give it up for our panelists. All right, well that was so awesome. If you have been here too, you know that we have been really enjoying doing things less conventionally than a typical sermon on Sundays. So we often do some breakout groups and have discussion. We're not doing that today, but if you're here next time, I'm sure you'll experience it where we chat with one another. But it's so cool to hear multiple voices and really a panel that represents what we're doing with this series. As we want to hear different voices, we want different voices to shape our understanding of God. We want to see if the Bible has been used for a lot of us as a weapon that's been really, really hurtful and harmful, but it's actually different access points for those of us on the margins to see ourselves in the story. All right, how are we doing? Good, yeah. Cool, thumbs up. Awesome. We are going to move into a time of communion. If you would like to participate, we have some readers that maybe, no, we don't have any communion supplies. I know we were running low. Okay, we don't have any communion supplies. So we're out of donuts. And coffee.
There's some bad Pop-Tarts out there though.
There's some bad Pop-Tarts. I wish I had like Skittles to like throw. You know what I mean? That would be a really cool.
Break bread and make it multiply.
Yeah, or bread, yeah, like a classic communion thing. We could also have bread. All right. I wonder, should we pass on communion and just do a prayer? Let's just pray. We can skip on communion, yeah. So we're like, huzzah! Okay. I was thinking of the Pirates of the Caribbean scenes. Does anyone seen Pirates of the Caribbean?
Of course.
Yes, of course, of course. You know when they like come out after and they're like, huzzah, huzzah. That was some of you with not doing communion this morning. Okay, well, there's the donut. Okay, I'm going to pray for us and then we will finish with some music. All right. God, you are the God who sees. You are the God who tells us we belong. You delight in us. We are good. And God, this complicated book, the Bible, has been one of a lot of trepidation for many of us. One where, gosh, it actually feels like we don't belong. We aren't safe. We aren't loved. And we are grateful that while the Bible still might not be our favorite place to hang out, that some of us actually got to experience, oh, there's a little joy, there's a little hope here, and we also might have a place in this story too. As we move through our weeks, when we keep reflecting on the shared wisdom of this panel, that we can learn from these different stories, the stories point us deeper into community, to seeing our neighbors, to being together, and finding our voice.
Amen.
Come on, proud, come on, green, come on, lights, come on, shame, come on, earthly, come receive it, to the table, come today. Come on, broken, come on, needy, come on, poor, and those insane. Come on, scarlet, oh, come receive it. Come on, healed, come today. Come to the table, for you and your Father. From the shadows, all the time. There's room at the table. Safety of the sea. Come to the banquet. Join everything. Every race, every nation, come on, brothers, come on, King, from the fringes unto Jesus, to a table full of grace, to the table, come and stay. Come to the table.
shock worship songs that we really like to play. So good. Wow, okay, something that I was thinking about during that panel was that I'm just so grateful for such an authentic group. Like, it's so refreshing to come to church and feel and sense that authenticity and the genuineness so grateful to all of you for creating this safe harbor for us to come, literally as we are, to the table. So thank you, everyone, for just making this just such a genuine community. With that, my genuine community, I'm going to go through some announcements for our community. So, first things first, shop yard sale. So we are doing a yard sale with the city of Tustin. It's not just going to be us, but various people in our community are putting on this yard sale at the Tustin Civic Center. So you're more than welcome next Saturday to just come on out, maybe bring cash, or I think Venmo or Zelle is accepted as well, and come on out and, you know, rummage through the sale, see what's out there. And this will be a great way for us as a community to enter into the bigger community here in Tustin. So, if you would like to donate yard sale items, I'm taking them this week in my garage. If you want to donate anything, maybe you just moved, maybe you just did a spring cleaning, we'll take it off you, and we'll use that for our yard sale. So, come to me, see me after, and I will give you the deets. Sound good? Cool. All right, next slide. We were just hearing about this, and your daddy made this comment about the coffee house. Every second and fourth Sunday, we have this thing called Sunday Morning Coffee House, and it's at a wonderful home in Irvine, hosted by Nate and Anna. And we have just coffee, and we hang out, and we are a community. So if you're interested in something like this, then you're more than welcome to come see me or Dottie, or any one of the leaders if you met someone and sensed they were a leader, and they will give you more details. Next slide. This is really exciting. Yes, we do baptisms here, and we have one on Palm Sunday. We are actually going to be celebrating the baptism of Angel. Angel, you gonna raise your hand? So, like any good Orange Countyan, we're going to Corona Del Mar for our baptism. Right? It's only fitting. You have to go to Corona Del Mar. I can't think of another beach. It just has to be that.
Huntington?
No. Huntington.
Corona Del Mar, much
The
better.
waves are coming in a little weird, so we like for
Huntington's weird.
we'll get swim. I always get okay, anyways. ADHD. Okay, 2 p.m. So after the coffee house. If you're trying to decide, okay, I will do one event on a Sunday with people, go to this instead of the coffee house. And if you're like, no, I'm feeling really extroverted today or shock extroverted today, you can go to both. So that'll be next Sunday at 2 p.m. Corona Del Mar. We'll post on all our socials and things, kind of the exact spot. But if you have any questions about attending Angel's baptism or about baptism in general, come see me or Dottie. Cool. Next slide. We have an LGBTQ small group called Haven. It's a fan favorite here at Shock, and it's Wednesdays at my place. And this week, it's a little cut off, but I am going to be taking us through some media literacy education. We do a lot of justice education here at Shock and also in Haven. And so my master's in communications, or mass communications, research and theory. So this is one of the things I'm very passionate about, so I'll be taking us through a little education session on media literacy, which is really interesting and very important. 6:30, we have dinner together. 7 p.m., we have our discussions. If you need directions, just see me and I'll give you my address. Next slide. We have a Wednesday morning small group. This is our theology discussion group. We've been going over some really big ticket items about God, the Bible, faith in general, and so if you're interested in this type of discussion, I understand that mornings on a Wednesday are not very accessible to those who work. Stay tuned, we're going to be thinking or trying to find a different time, but for now, they're Wednesday mornings, and you're welcome to join us. I don't know why that always, join our IG group or talk to Ryan is always in a weird color. It's supposed to be white, but I don't know why it's not. We have yoga today. Yes, we do. 4:30 p.m., right, Ryan?
4:30, yep.
Yeah, I will be there. A few of us will be there. Neil will be there. Who else is going to be there? Brandon, are you going to be there?
I'm going to try.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. We're going to do yoga in the park at Santiago Park. If you have any questions about where it is and just yoga in general, go see Ryan. Ryan's going to raise his hand again.
Literally.
If you have any questions, we have a group chat. It's really fun. Next slide. Okay, a lot of you reach out to me and ask me, how do I stay connected? There is so much stuff going on at Shock for just a small church as you are, but I'm forgetting it all. If you want to be reminded, you can go on our mailing list. This QR code, I'm going to leave this up a little bit. We'll keep this up, Phil, for a second. I'll talk about it in the slide, and then people can get the QR code. But we have a mailing list. You can subscribe to the mailing list and get all this information every other week. That's when we send it out. We also have a calendar on our website. It's literally just that tab, calendar. And then we have an Instagram, which is very active. We have a lot of group chats. We've got like a community group chat of like 60 of us, and we just like post when we're hanging out or doing something or going rollerblading, things like that. We also have a Discord. If you go into the mailing list, all those links to all these things are going to be there. The Discord link now works. I know last time, Rowan pointed it out last time, it wasn't working. It works now. We made sure of it. So it's good. Are we good? Can I change the slide? Okay, great. Next slide. And for those of you who are new to Shock, we are an independent church. That means we're non-denominational. That's very, very unique for an affirming church, for an LGBTQ affirming church. I myself am queer and a woman, which is very, very unique. We're also non-denominational. So that means that we receive our funds from individual donors like you. So if you're like, I want Shock to thrive, or this is the community that I feel like is giving to me, then you can consider donating $10. You can consider donating whatever amount feels comfortable to you. But that's the information. You can also just go on our website and think about it later. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to do benediction to close this out for our Belonging series. This was the last week of that. Something to keep a note is that our next service will be Easter Sunday, April 20th. We are going to have a good time. So, if you need somewhere to be on Easter, it's going to be here. And we also will have an egg hunt, an Easter egg hunt for the kids after, which is going to be really cute. So at least, I mean, if you want to watch an Easter egg hunt and you don't have any nieces or nephews or children, come watch the kids be really cute in the garden and get their Easter eggs. Okay, here we go, friends. May the one who wove you into being hold you into the fabric of love and grace. May the spirit of wisdom shine within you and guide your heart with gentleness and strength. May the Holy Presence, ever near, ever tender, lift up her gaze upon you and wrap you in peace that welcomes, heals, and binds us together. You belong, you are beloved,